Hello and welcome to this video on non-fatal offences for A-level law. Now this one's going to be a little bit different. We are going to look at, in this one, the elements of each offence. We'll give a summary of each. We're going to look at the injuries for each offence and how to spot each of these in a scenario question. So we're going to begin with the elements of each offence. So the first offence we're going to look at is assault, which as we know is a common law offence, and this sentence for this comes under section 39 of the Criminal Justice Act of 1988. Now the actus reus for this offence is to cause the victim to apprehend or be aware of immediate, which as we know is not necessarily immediate but in the near future or unpredictable time, and then application of unlawful physical force or violence. The mens rea for this is intention or subjective recklessness to cause this apprehension, so to make the victim apprehend immediate unlawful violence. For battery, again, a common law offence, the same as assault, section 39 of the Criminal Justice Act provides the sentence. Now in this one we've got a direct or indirect act, which is the application of unlawful force. So direct or indirect application of unlawful force. So to apply any touch. And the mens rea for this is intention or subjective recklessness as to the application of unlawful force. Next up, we have assault occasioning actual bodily harm. Now this is provided for under section 47 of the Offences Against a Person Act 1861. And it's a little bit unusual in that the actus reus is essentially an assault or a battery. And that assault is of course less usual, but of course when there's a mental health issue or something as a result, assault can be the case. But battery can be direct or indirect battery. Now you don't have to deal with these in as much detail as you would if you're doing an assault or battery, but certainly all the elements need to be hit more succinctly. This needs to occasion or cause actual bodily harm. So for occasioning you discuss causation. For actual bodily harm you're stating what type of harm it is and why that fits the definition of actual bodily harm. And again for mens rea, this way is a little bit unusual in that it's the intention or subjective recklessness, not for ABH or to cause some harm, but rather for assault or for battery, so match that up to the actus reus. Now GBH, or grievous bodily harm or wounding, under section 20 of the Offence Against a Person Act is slightly less severe than section 18, but the actus reus for this is an unlawful act which inflicts or causes serious bodily harm, as in GBH, or a wound which is a break in both layers of the skin. The mens rea for this is intention or recklessness to cause some harm. Now that's important, some harm. Because if we compare from section 18 GBH, which again is found under the Offence Against a Person Act of 1861, this is an unlawful act which inflicts or causes GBH or a wound. Now the difference between the two offences is the mens rea. So again, this is intention to cause serious harm or to resist lawful arrest. So what we got there is intention with no recklessness, and you need to intend to cause serious harm or to resist lawful arrest. Realistically, it's going to be that serious harm issue in the problem question. Next up, we're going to look at the injuries which you might look out for non-fatal offences as given by the joint charging standards. Now for assault, it's things like fear, threats, fright or upset. For battery, it's things such as grazes, scratches, abrasions, minor bruising, swelling, reddening of the skin, superficial cuts and a black eye. Now be careful there, because of course some of those last ones where there's some injury, usually be charged with ABH under the definition of ABH, but in actual fact would not be. So be careful with those, make sure you're aware. Now for ABH it's things such as breaking of a tooth or teeth, temporary loss of sensory functions, so for example loss of consciousness, extensive or multiple bruising, a displaced broken nose, minor fractures, minor cuts of a sort require medical treatment, and psychiatric injury, which is more than just fear, distress or panic. And for GBA section 20, we've got any injury resulting in permanent disability, a permanent loss of any sensory function, a significant permanent visible disfigurement, broken or displaced limbs or bones, including a fractured skull, compound fractures, broken cheekbone or broken jaw. Injuries causing substantial loss of blood, so that would be a wound, and injuries resulting in lengthy treatment or incapacity. Now, of course, a wound is a break in both layers of the skin too, so anything which is profusely bleeding. And for GBA section 18, the injuries are exactly the same. The difference, as we know, is the mens rea. Now the tricky part then is to put all this together. How in a 30-mark scenario do you spot which type it is? Now of course assault and battery may be a little bit easier, but it might get a little bit more difficult when we have ABH. You know, there might be a difference in opinion between ABH and battery. Just be careful as to what to look out for. And again with GBH, how do you spot the difference between the two? So we're going to look at that now. So for assault, the words you're looking for within the scenario are things like fear or someone being scared, threats made during the course of the scenario, gestures such as shaking a fist, name calling to make someone scared or be wary. You might have messaging, letters, phone calls, stalking, screams, or the victim staying at home because they're afraid. All of those things might be assault, which then you would know to look to and then apply assault. For battery, really what you're looking for is no injuries. As we know, it can be abrasions and things of that nature. So you need to look for in scenarios things like touching of clothing, causing a substance to be applied, which could be worse. You know, if it does form some harm, it could be the battery or the unlawful act which creates an ABH or GBH. It could be pushing or punching, again, any unwanted touch. Then we've got bruising, spitting even, superficial cuts or abrasions, reddening of the skin, black eye, or pulling somebody's hair. So all of those things would be battery things to look out for the way those questions are written. Actual bodily harm, remember this could also be psychiatric harm. So you're looking for things like psychiatric harm causing some injury, so something which is not serious. Anxiety disorders is something you might put into, or loss of consciousness or concussion, so they've been knocked out. Broken nose or loss of teeth, somebody cutting somebody's hair, a fractured bone, minor cuts, extensive or multiple bruising, remember what follow the case law in that, and non-permanent damage. Now for GBH section 20, of course, although the actus reus is different, there is some tricks to spot the difference between the two. So for GBH section 20, we have things like wounds, and you might see wording like deep cuts, deep gashes, blood loss or cuts, and that's the trigger for you then to go and think that's GBH, that's a wound, and so I need to apply section 20 or section 18. You might also see an infliction of a disease, serious psychiatric injuries, multiple broken bones, brain damage, permanent loss of function, so something which is very serious. And finally, although the ones from section 20 are still applicable, but the trick is to spot the difference between section 18 and section 20. Now, the difference is the mens rea, so of course what you're looking for is how do they demonstrate intent to cause serious harm. Now, easy way to do this is to spot maybe any weapons used. You know, that's easier to prove the level of intent, or repeated blows or hitting. So the more time they do things, the more you can demonstrate intent. Now, of course, section 18 also has the idea of evading arrest. So if they're trying to avoid arrest, that means it's probably going to be section 18. So that's the video. If you want an explanation of all of these, go to the Reasonable Dan channel. You'll find them in the criminal law playlist.